Just a little intro music for you, Mr. Skip. How are you, sir? Welcome to 8th grade. I'm sure it's been a while, but here you are again. Looks like a sweet.
There we go.
Hey, what's up? How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. I've set up the iPad to talk to you guys, and the cameras and computer in the other room to show you what I'm doing with my feet as well as what I'm doing with my cello.
Very nice. Well, we didn't have school yesterday in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, so today is our first day back, and we haven't had much time to really understand what a cello even is. I played a little video last week and this morning, but kind of just knowing what we're talking about might be a good first step, you know?
Sure. Well, forgive my setup with the speaking to you camera. This is a cello. It's in the violin family, you have the violin, which is the smallest and the highest sounding instrument, followed by the viola, which goes a little bit lower than a violin, but is still kind of in that same range, just a little deeper. And then the cello is a whole octave, meaning the lowest string of a viola is the same as the lowest string of a cello. And it occupies a range that's, let's make sure you can hear some sound from here. Is that coming through to you?
Oh, it sounds perfect.
Okay, good. So we have a super low note. There's on the upright bass, which is the deepest of all the string instruments. There is, it only goes 5 notes lower than this. But the cello can also play really high. So most people don't play that high, but 5 octaves, which means an octave is like when you have a note that matches a note, but it's higher. So the cello is often compared to the human voice because it has that range all the way from bass to soprano. And it can do all kinds of things as an instrument. It can provide pulse and bass line, you know. Or just like a rhythmic. And completely like melodies. So it's a wonderfully versatile instrument, and for centuries it's been played unamplified. It's got a big open body that projects a good amount of sound. So before electricity and electric guitars and that kind of thing, it was always an acoustic instrument, meaning unplugged in. But I plug it in because I grew up in this century, or the last century.
Now on your right hand, you have not a weapon, but what is this called?
It is a bow. there are no arrows that go with this bow, but it's bowed like a bow. There's a piece of wood that's a stick, and whereas like a bow and arrow would have one single string for you to pull the arrow back, this has hundreds and hundreds of pieces of horsehair from the tail of a horse, and you put rosin on it, which is basically sap from a tree. It makes it sticky and grab the strings so that so you can get long held notes out of it.
That's amazing. We hadn't really talked about what the bow is, and I didn't know it was made out of horsehair. Like,
yeah, just the white part on the stick is horsehair, and you'll see like there's a little black here. That's from the oils that just naturally occur in your skin, and when you're holding it, sometimes your finger touches that part of it, so it gets a little black, but it doesn't keep the rest of the bow. You try never to touch the hair anywhere else, because it'll pick up oils and dirt and be less effective at pulling sound out of the instrument. Oops.
well, do you want to showcase a little cello music for us, and we can maybe
Sure.
ask some questions a little bit later?
I'm going to quickly tune because you guys are worth it. And being in tune makes it easier to put your fingers in the right place. Wow, that's being really testy. Just one more piece of information about the cello. These up here are tuning pegs, and they're big, and you have to really work them to change the thing. So if the cello went majorly out of tune, I would use the pegs. But then I have these fine tuners that are down here that allow me to just make the little adjustments that I'm trying to make to get it to be in tune. So what I'd like to do, if you guys listen to pop music, I'm going to quickly turn off sound on this before I play the song. If you listen to pop music, you'll find that usually it's in 4/4. It's like a dun 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 dun. But I want to play a piece of music for you that's in 7, which is a common time in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. But it basically comes out to short, short, long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. So this is called 7/8 inch. And I'll make a short version of it, and I'm just gonna turn down my volume.
Whoa, Skip. Hey, Skip, we can't hear anything at this point. Hello? Skip? We can't hear you. I think because that one might be muted.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Oh shoot, that's so loud. Okay, well, I'm gonna try this again, and hopefully it'll come through to you on this. I may have not done the right thing, but at least you're seeing the camera angle. So, and you can watch my foot. I'm going to create a base layer and then add some layers, and hopefully you'll hear this. So just yell at me if you don't.
Whoa, guys, we're gonna clap for Mr. Skip here. That was phenomenal. I have so many questions. I have so many questions. Okay, so first off, where is your mind when you're playing cello? Like, where are you at in your head?
I am completely in the moment. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm not thinking about the chores I have to do. I'm just in the moment. But I'm in a weird way. I'm not even really paying attention to what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm trying to stay in time and build those things. Um, but once it's there, I'm just I'm in a free space. Like when you're running or when you're playing, exercising, playing a video game, but you've done it a million times and you're not really you don't really super have to pay attention to what you're doing. um, Although you do have to spend a lot of time paying attention to what you're doing to grow into being a musician.
Right. I was watching some videos of you last night. I've just kind of become a huge fan of yours because of meeting you, and I can tell when you're playing, it's like you're in a space that is just you're just it's a magical space for you. I think you know.
I feel pretty lucky that to be able to check out from other concerns and just be one with the music, you know.
Yeah. Now that was a cover, right? Can you tell us what the
Oh
cover
no,
was?
that's an original piece of music that I wrote
Okay.
a bunch of years, and it started out as an improvisation. I was playing a, a gig with an accordion player that friend of mine, and he said, and largely I was accompanying him, and he said to me, "Hey, why don't you make something up on the loop?" And because I played a lot of Eastern European music with him, I decided not to do a 4/4, and I just played that bass line, and you know, it's developed over years. That whole this whole part that was not part of it originally. It was just, you know, and we took turns soloing over that. But eventually, it developed into this thing that I played with a band that with the accordion player and another cellist, upright bass, drums, and saxophone. Uh, and yeah, and now it's a part of a two-man band that I have called Groovy Wallpaper.
Groovy Wallpaper.
Yeah.
I love it. I thought I'm sorry. I thought that you said this is a pop song. I just thought that was like a cover. But then when you after you played it, I was like, I don't recognize that. So it makes sense. It's an
Oh,
original. You know.
well, I was just kind of saying that most pop songs, most of what you hear on the radio, is not in odd time signatures. It's 4/4, and the second song I'll play is actually in 4/4. So, which it's a little bit more driving, a little more dancey, I guess you could say.
Now you were looping. I don't think we've ever seen anybody loop yet. Can you just briefly explain what that means?
Yeah. So this red pedal down here that my foot is on right now um, has three separate channels that you can trigger to record what you're playing, and then it plays it back, and then you can record on top of that to create multiple parts, which is how I did what I did. Which, if I'm not mistaken, it starts out with the first loop, and then there's two layers on top of it that are the harmony, the sort of this one first, and the second one was, and then I just let those three play together, and I played melody over it that I wasn't looping. And then when I wanted the fast part, I did two more loops. So there were uh, five distinct parts that were recorded while I was playing it, and then the part that I improvised over the top of it. So six different pieces of music or different parts for the cello going at the same time. Um, but by adding them, building them up, it's kind of a little bit like architecture. You build a foundation, then you put up supports for walls and floors, and then you put in the floors in the walls. Then you make it pretty inside, and that's uh, you know, an analogy, but uh,
I think it's a good one. It's one we actually used on Friday when we watched you at Northwest Loop Fest. We were watching your videos, and I described it as like building Legos with like layers of music. You know, and you have this tower at the end. It's beautiful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sometimes it can be a house of cards. I mean, you can place something wrong and the whole thing can fall apart. But when you've been doing it as long as I have, which I mean, I started looping 18 years ago. So and the tools that were available to me were not as developed as they are now. So but yeah, but you get used to it, moving on the fly and thinking, and how do I get around this, and what am I going to do?
Sure. Well, before you play another song, I want to allow Mr. Regan to talk a little bit with some of his students because he can't stick around for too long, and he's our speech therapist, and he works with our kids on formulating questions and articulating them and getting them out appropriately. So I'll let him just kind of talk a little bit and get those kids to maybe ask a few questions with his help.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Jared. Hey, Skip, I actually had the pleasure of playing with you at the Edgefield with Janet Julian during the Petty Cash thing when you were doing those Mondays years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been a while, but it was, yeah.
It would be my 17th year of doing that if there was live music anymore.
Yeah, no, it was a really cool thing. I know. And thank you so much for being here today. I want to give these students a chance to ask some of the questions that they were curious about, okay?
Okay.
So, Dylan, are you ready with your question, buddy? Okay, I'm going to come back to Dylan because I don't see him there. But Matt, are you ready, buddy? Matt, can you please turn on your mic? And are you ready with your question?
What was the biggest audience what you played to?
Well, I was fortunate enough to play with a youth orchestra in China in 1985, and we played for 10,000 people there in a gymnasium, which was pretty nice. But you know, I've played at festivals where there have been 30,000 people, but probably not all of them were listening. But that time in China was pretty big. Most recently, before the lockdown, I did a performance in Anchorage, Alaska with my band Portland Cello Project on March 6th of 2020. And there were 2,500 people there.
500 people.
That's a lot of people, Matthew.
That is.
Great question, bud. Mr. Regan, if you want to unmute yourself, then you can, you're still muted.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Dylan, are you ready, buddy? There you go. Come on back. And Dylan, if you can unmute yourself, you can ask Skip the question. There you go.
Okay.
Hi, Dylan.
Hi. Who are your favorite performers?
Wow. There are a bunch. I honestly, I really am into a lot of jazz musicians that you may not have heard of, but I'm really inspired by Yo-Yo Ma. I got to see him once, and that was fantastic. I had to try and mentally calm my brain down and say, stop thinking about the fact that he's Yo-Yo Ma and the fact that you're a cellist, and just listen to what he's doing. But I really like Victor Wooten on bass. I'm a big fan of Rush. Huge fan of Pink Floyd, but I haven't really seen them perform. But I have seen Rush perform, and that was awesome. Yeah, I like a lot of different things.
I'm just curious if you like David Bowie, because I thought that song you came into was appropriate.
Oh yeah, for sure. In fact, when he passed away, I had a show at Edgefield that night, and me and my partner ended up playing, trying to play all David Bowie songs, even though I didn't know all of them. But I do play a bunch of obscure Bowie songs with him, and I also was part of a all-star tribute that played the Black Star album and the Low album a year apart at Alberta Street Theater. And yeah, so love Bowie. Particularly fond of I'm Afraid of Americans these days.
Awesome answer. Mr. Regan, do you want to have Robert ask a question before you go?
That would be great, yeah. And unfortunately, I do have to get going. Robert, do you want to ask your question? Let's see, Robert, are you there?
I don't even know if I see him in his room here anymore. He may have got
Yeah,
booted out.
he's not. It looks like he's not in the room. I don't see him.
Well, I do have a question that Xander was going to ask. If you want to just hear Xander's question before you go.
Sure.
Go ahead, Xander. It's in the chat there, bud.
What do you think the future of cello is?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite make out the question.
What do you think the future of cello is?
Oh, the future of cello. I don't know, but I hope to be a big part of it. And I've been playing the cello since 1976. After I'd been playing about 10 years, when I'd been playing 9 years, when I was 17, I decided that, I wanted to learn how to play the bass and the guitar. And I continued to play the cello, but I thought of them as separate things. It was like, this is my classical instrument, and I'm going to learn how to jam with my friends on the guitar and the bass. But soon, like as I went to college, more and more people were like, hey, why don't you play cello on this song? And eventually I realized I wanted to change the way cello was used and seen. And it was before the internet and a crazy time. So I thought I was inventing a different approach to cello, but then the internet came around and I realized that a lot of people are doing different things with cello. And in fact, it was another cello player who first introduced me to loop pedals, who was the first musician I saw using a loop pedal. And I went up to him after his show and said, what is that? And I'm going to buy one tomorrow.
Cool. Yeah, we actually heard two cellos playing a live performance of Smells Like Teen Spirit this morning. And so cello is cool, was what we're learning. It's not just about an orchestra. It has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
There's another part to that question, if that's okay for Xander to ask, because I think it's really, really important for the kids to hear this too. Xander, can you ask the other part to that question? It was two parts.
How can kids get into a 2-point cello?
I'm sorry, I need to hear it one more time.
How can kids get into playing cello?
Well, there are music stores that rent cellos, and there are a lot of teachers who help start cello players off. But renting a cello is not a super expensive proposition, but it does take a good while to get to a point where it's fun listening to yourself. And there's a lot of practice involved, and you have to play a lot of boring stuff to begin with. But unlike the violin, you can make a sound that sounds good to you more quickly playing the cello than some of the higher instruments, which tend to be scratchy and harsh because they're high pitch. But because the cello is a low pitch, it's easier to get a good sound to come out of it at the beginning. But I know you guys are in McMinnville, but there probably is a band or instrument store. The other thing is, I know you're not in school right now, but some school systems, if you express an interest in learning an instrument, they might be able to help you find somebody who is willing to lend an instrument or sponsor you getting an instrument to play.
How much does one cost?
I have another cello that I bought at a Trade Up Music, a small used instrument shop in Portland, that I paid $500 for. I imagine there are some on eBay that you can get in the $199 range. They're not going to be very good, but in truth, if I had to replace this cello, it would be in the neighborhood of $40,000. So, and that's not even an expensive cello. That's a first tier professional instrument. You know, is $30,000. It's like where you start with really good professional instruments. However, like I said, you can, that $500 cello that I have, that's what I use back in the days when I flew places. That's the one that I put in a case and said, "Here, airline, take this and please don't break it." But I felt a lot more comfortable traveling with that one than with this one.
Holy cow.
And it's still a decent enough instrument that you can really play and learn on. And you don't need the greatest cello to start playing. For instance, too, like this bow, I bought this bow in 1982 for $800. But you can buy bows for $50 or $99. There's a huge amount of wiggle room in all of it. You guys still there?
Yeah, we're here. We're just in awe of how expensive things are. I wish it was, it seems like cello is such a great instrument, but you have to have almost this privilege to get into it. And that's what's frustrating sometimes, is that kids should be exposed to music, but they can't really get into it with their socioeconomics,
I completely understand that. I mean, I'm fortunate that back in 1976, the school system had instruments and they encouraged kids to take up an instrument. And that was like, band instruments, they encouraged everybody in 4th grade to take up an instrument. But with string players, there was a separate consultant to the school that just taught the violin family of instruments. And so I had a cello that I was allowed to use for a couple of years. And then when I got good, my parents actually helped me to buy one. And at the time it was a 3/4 size. So you don't even have, this is a full size cello, but there are smaller ones, all the way down to 10th size, that are, they're certainly more affordable. But when I was in 6th grade, a local minister contacted my family and said, "We have a cello that's been in the attic for 30 years. Do you know anybody who wants it?" And I got the cello. I gave $4 to the fellow as a minister. So I gave $4 to his church, and I got this cello that was really broken and beaten up, but I took it to an instrument repair person who fixed it up for me for not a lot of money. And so there's the thing is, if you really desire it, there are ways to get into having a cello to play with. And sometimes it's really as simple as reaching out to your community and saying, "Does anybody have a cello that they don't use? I would really like to learn to play," and somebody will potentially loan you a cello. Most people who have instruments that aren't being played want to see them go to somebody who will play them.
Almost sounds like we have some kind of movement we could start where, you got these kids who desire these instruments and these people with these instruments that aren't playing them. Maybe we could create some magic somehow. Who knows?
That would be really fantastic. let's stay in touch after this and see if we can't figure out a way to start that movement.
Let's do it. Let's get everybody a cello. Rock out. Create our own orchestra. Well, man, you've been so generous with your time and your questions. And I know I told you around 25 minutes, but if you have another song you could play, and then we'll let everyone get back to their day. And we're just so thankful we've met you and learned from you. And we couldn't just be happier, you know?
Okay, I'm gonna put you into gallery view here for a second and ask, does anybody here like Star Wars? Raise your hand. It's okay if you don't, but so there's one of the fun things that I do with music, and you may have seen mashups on YouTube or things of that nature, but I like to mash up pieces of songs into another song. So and this is going to be slightly different in that I have pre-programmed some drum sounds into here for this song, and I'm just going to do it on cello because it takes too long to add the mandolin. But this is called I also play the mandolin, and I call this song Mando Calrissian. And I'm gonna mash up some Star Wars themes in here.
Wow, very nice, Skip. Everyone, please give Skip a round of applause if you would, please. I found my mind going to that escape place when I was listening to that song. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Well,
well, it's the desert sands of Tatooine that I go to.
is that right? To call it something specific. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Skip, we got to get to math class. You know, we do have that coming up here. So I would love to just hang out with you all day. I hope I get to meet you in person sometime. One of the things that we'd like to do with, I've been working on this grant and I think it's coming through and all that, is we'd like to buy something from the artist for our classroom as a tangible item to remember you by and just to contribute to our class. So I don't know if you have a way for us to buy a CD or an album or a shirt or something.
Oh, sure. You could go to bandcamp.com /Groovy Wallpaper, or just go to Bandcamp and search Groovy Wallpaper, and you'll find both of the songs I played together on a CD called Afterthought.
All right. Well, we'll probably purchase that then.
Terrific.
And I'm sure you're missing a live audience. I hope that we were able to help you a little bit with playing to us. You certainly helped us.
Fantastic.
All right.
I'm going to do a live stream at noon today, just because I have this camera set up. So I'm going to do a Facebook live stream today, which will be there, post the live performance. So, and it'll be on my personal page.
Excellent. Well, we have lunch break at that time, so maybe I can just pull up my Facebook and live stream you, and then the kids can watch it while they're having lunch if they would like, and we would just be entertained even more.
Well, awesome. I'm totally, it's totally going to be more of a meditational kind of vibe, and I'll be playing other instruments as well.
Cool. We'll tune in. Well, Skip, thanks again for coming. I hope that you and I can stay in touch. We got some good ideas happening here, and if you need anything, let me know, okay?
Yeah, excellent. Will do. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.